Hello to whoever's watching this video. Today I'm going to be going over the commands in sensing and operators. Alright, we're going to start off with sensing. So first one up is this touching button, and that will make the cat sense when it is touching either the mouse pointer or the edge of the screen. So as you can see, it is not touching the edge, it says false. But if I put it over here so it is touching the edge, it should say true. And then there's also a mouse pointer option. And also if I make a new sprite, and we'll make it a green square just for simplicity, we can say that it's touching sprite 2, which is this green square over here. So as you can see, if I put it over here, it should say true, or I can take it off and it'll say false. There's also the touching color option. So as you can see, I can set it to green, and now it can say it's not touching the color green. But now if I put the cat next to the green, it'll say true. So there's also this color is touching color, and now what this is asking is this color on the edge of the sprite touching this color in the background? So as you can see, this blue on the edge of this blue square is touching the color yellow, so this is true. So it's basically asking, is a sprite touching a place in the background that is that color? I'm not sure what you could use that for. Maybe a maze game. There's also this distance to mouse pointer. That one's pretty self-explanatory. We can actually, you can see it calculates how far away the sprite is from the mouse, and this is in pixels. We can actually say point towards the mouse and move distance to mouse pointer, and now it'll always follow the mouse. In fact, if we want it to move a little bit less than that distance, that it kind of like comes in towards the mouse, then we can do something like that. And now you can see it trails behind a bit. And yeah, that's basically how distance to mouse pointer is. There's also this key press, which is pretty self-explanatory. It just asks, is this key being pressed right now? So if I push down my F key and double click on this, it says true, but if I release it, double click, it says false. Mouse down, it'll ask if the mouse is clicking or not. So if I double tap this really fast so that my finger comes off the mouse before it measures, then it'll say false. But if I double click and keep my mouse held down, then it'll say true. Mouse X and mouse Y are variables, and they will actually give the exact same numbers as you see here, which is just like the X and Y position of your mouse on the screen. And as you can see, the X goes from -240 to 240, and the Y from -180 to 180. And so these are going to give whatever number it says here. So if you have your mouse here and you ran it, it would probably give you like -50 by 100. So these are pretty self-explanatory. The mouse X is this big X number here. It's the X position of your mouse pointer on the screen. So it's not like on the entire screen, it's just on the window. You can also full screen it, and it'll be on this larger window. But the X will always go from negative 240 to 240, and the Y will always go from negative 180 to 180. Yeah, if you want to play around with that, you can kind of use this to see where your mouse needs to be and what numbers you'll get where your mouse is. Alright, loudness. You need to use your speakers you need to use a microphone for this. So it'll basically measure, well, how loud it currently is. So if I make it really quiet and double click, you can see it gives a 1. But if I start talking really loudly, then it'll give me a 9 or large numbers. Alright, video motion on this sprite. This one's a tricky one. So first thing I need to do is turn the video on. Then you can see my hand on the screen here. And as you can see, I can make my hand move and everything on the screen. Video motion on this sprite will basically check if there are any pixels that change on the camera and how much they changed, and it'll output a number. So maybe if it's changing from light to dark really quickly, then it'll say a high number. It's set the video transparency. This one's pretty self-explanatory. It just makes the video more or less transparent. Timer. Alright, so timer is basically a measure of how much time it's been since the program was started. And double click on this, you can see it says 3.3 and it counts up. And yeah, and as you can see, it restarted when I click the green flag. So now it's basically just the number of seconds since the green flag was clicked. Reset timer. Reset timer will reset the timer as it says, so it'll set it back to 0 and it'll start counting up again. X position of sprite 1. So as you can see, this X and Y here, and it's the same as like mouse X or mouse Y. It'll just give you these values, but instead of for your mouse, it's for whatever sprite. You can set it for you can also set it for the stage, although I don't think it would do anything. It'll just say 0 every time. You have Y position. Direction is like what way it's pointing. So now it's pointing in 90. But now it's pointing at 165. And this is in degrees. Costume number is pretty self-explanatory. Right now it's in costume 2, but I can also change it to costume 1. You still have the cat and it'll output 1. Current minute is, as you can see right now, it's 4:31 p.m. and this will output the current minute, which is 31. You can also set it to year, it's 2018, or month, it's January, which is just a 1. It'll give you a number for the month. Date, so this will give you the day of the month. Day of the week, this one's pretty self-explanatory. It gives me a 4 for Wednesday, so it starts on Sunday. Hours, the current hour, 16, so it's on a 24-hour clock. Minute and second are pretty self-explanatory as well. Days since 2000 is the number of days it's been since the year 2000 on January 1st. And the username will just output the name of whoever's using the program. So if you share it, and someone else uses it, it'll say their username there. And of course, all these numbers you can put into scripts, you can put them into variables, or into operators, which I'm going to get into next. Alright, so operators. This is basically how you take all the sensing and you use it for what you want. These first four are pretty self-explanatory. They will add, subtract, multiply, and divide for you. This star is a multiplication symbol and this slash is division. And you can put them together, and each of these blocks act as if they're like parentheses together. So right now it'll do the addition first, and then the subtraction, and then the division, and then the multiplication, and then the addition. So yeah. Pick random is also pretty simple. It'll give you a random integer between 1 and 10, and you can also change these numbers. Also, in these little round areas, you can see that some of these are a little bit rounded, so you can actually put them in here like this, or like this. So we can do something like that. And if one of the numbers in the pick random isn't an integer, then instead of giving you a random integer, it'll give you a random floating point number, which basically means a random number to as many digits as it can store. So next up we have these inequalities. There is no less than or equal or greater than or equal to, but there is an or, so we can just combine the greater than and the equal to, and as long as we duplicate these. It's a little bit more of a long-winded process than it should be. So if we just do something like that, then it will give you greater than or equal to. It's a little bit more long-winded than I really think it has to be, than I think it should be. So I feel like they should add more blocks, but they haven't, so you have to do this. Speaking of, that brings me on to and, or, and not. These take in little hexagons, and these hexagons mean that you're getting a Boolean number, which means a true or a false. So stuff like this, you can see sometimes it'll give you true or false, and it's got the hexagon shape, so it can fit in here. And then this will give you true if both of them are true. This will give you true if at least one of them are true. This one will also give you true if both of them are true. So if I say key F pressed and mouse down, and then I hold the F key and hold click, it'll say true. So it's not an exclusive or, which would be what it would be called if it did not give true when both of them are. And the other one is not, which basically will give you the opposite of what you put in. So you put in true, it gives you false. You put in false, it gives you true. These are called logic gates, and they make up a lot of programming at the most basic level. Next are these word bits. And join is pretty simple. So as you can see, I can put in, say, apple here and sauce here, and it'll join them to create applesauce. You can also put in like days since 2000, and then you can say days since 2000, and now it'll say the number of days since 2000 and then the word days since 2000. You might also want to put a space at the beginning so that it doesn't like combine them together. Yeah, so any of these round things, actually these Booleans will work too. So it'll give you just the word true or false. Letter 1 is pretty simple. You can just say which character you want of a word, and it'll give you that character. Although sometimes they won't be letters, they'll be like numbers. So if I do that, it will give me the number 8. Length is just the number of characters in the word. Next are mod, round, and these math functions. Modulo, if you've never used it before, then you might need to look it up. But basically, it'll take the remainder if you divide the first number by the second number. So if I did 200 here and I do mod 15, then 200 divided by 15 is actually I think 13 with a remainder of 5, so it'll give me 5 as the answer. Round is pretty simple. Basically, if you take a number and round it, you get rid of the bits after the decimal place. So if we say round days since 2000, it'll just give me an integer number. If it's more than a half, it'll round up, meaning it'll go to above the number. So like 6.6 if you rounded it. Actually, I can show you. So 6.6, if for example, if you rounded it, it'll round to 7. But 6.4, since it's less than 6.5, will round to 6. Also, 6.5. Some people just decided that it should round up for no real reason whatsoever. And then there's this one, which basically has a bunch of math functions. And if you want, you can probably just look most of these up. Actually, you can probably look all of these up. Abs is absolute value. So if you put in a negative or a positive number, it'll always give you like the positive version. Floor is like round, but it always goes down. So if I did like 6.9, it'll give me 6. Ceiling is just the opposite of floor, so it'll always round up. So 6.1 will ceiling to 7, whereas rounding it would bring it down to 6. The square root, squirt stands for square root, so what number times itself equals that number. So the square root of 9 is 3. We've got trigonometry functions. We've got sine, cosine, tangent, arcsine, arc, cosine, and arctangent. Alright, so we've got the natural logarithm, which is log base e, log base 10, e to the power of, and 10 to the power of. 10 to the power of will basically just make a 1 with that many zeros. Log will just, if you have a 1 with however many zeros, it'll just give you the number of zeros. Looks like there's a bit of a rounding error there, but yeah. Yeah, I think that's about it for this video. Thank you for watching to the end, and I'll see you in the next one, hopefully. Hope you enjoyed. Goodbye.